Okay, we're going to have a case study now on corporate experience in reducing carbon emissions. We have Terry Moore, who's the principal and co-founder of Carbon Shrinks, LLC, an Austin consulting firm that specializes in carbon reduction and community stakeholder strategies. Terry's a native of Dallas, graduated from Duke University in 1971 to start a career in software. Prior to launching Carbon Shrinks, Terry was executive director of Sustainable Dallas, a nonprofit focused on corporate social and environmental responsibility.
Thanks, Bridget. So just to recap our case study so far, we've heard from Bob tell us about the way things got started with Texas Lehigh and the way we came together. Bridget's moved on to tell you about our first project, which was the stakeholder engagement project around the alternate fuels project. So I'm going to now move on to our second project with Texas Lehigh, our carbon reduction roadmap. So what is it? Well, primarily a roadmap is a strategy framework. And one of the most important aspects of that is that it looks at a 15-year time frame. It's based on our belief that we're facing a huge transition from the economy we've got now to the really fully priced, carbon-priced economy. And once we get out beyond 15, 20 years, things will be a little bit more settled, but getting from point A to point B is going to be disruptive. And if you're going to manage that transition, you've got to start looking at the full duration right from the beginning, somewhat along the lines of the EPRI prism that goes out to 2030. What a roadmap does is it looks specifically at one facility. We saw the EPRI thing about the entire electricity generation sector. We're the other side of that coin. We're looking at one specific facility, the only things relevant to them. And from the outset, it's designed to have annual updates. Again, the EPRI thing showed us moving from 07 to 08, the way they updated their model. We are intending to update this year by year as we get more information about legislation, the technology situation changes in terms of prices and feasibilities, and also the markets are also changing. We are always trying to look at the widest possible range of options to meet compliance obligations. So yes, we look at a big menu of candidate projects for reduction and some offsets, but we look at other things that involve more indirect opportunities for the business. And all of this is based on flexibility. We use computer modeling tools. I've got a background in software development, and so we put together some tools that allow us to flexibly try out different scenarios, different sets of assumptions about what might be the various shape of the legislation that might emerge in the federal Congress. So that's a bit about what it is. How do we go about doing it? We always would begin with some initial briefings, and this helps get the senior people in the organization onto the same page with us about the general basics about cap and trade and carbon. We heard our introductory talk today. It was getting us all sort of on the basic starting point about what this climate change thing is all about. We move into doing in-depth analysis of the cap and trade legislative situation. And of course, right now, ahead of anything being introduced to this Congress, we've got to rely on what happened in the last Congress, what's happening in some of the states around the U.S., and the programs already operating around the world to identify different design attributes and trends to put sort of likely possibilities for a new regulatory situation. A lot of what we do is cost-benefit analysis. I've got a background in doing financial analysis. I worked with banks, and we always had strict rules about assessing the cost-benefit of any project the bank would look at before it embarked upon it. So we use those traditional tools, and these are part of our computer modeling when we go look at all the projects and the whole picture, put it all together in one big scenario. And we deal with a lot of different project developers who have all these different kind of technologies available and get from each of them a broad brush picture of the financials, the capital involved, the operating costs, and so on. And then we bring in the client's situation, their data of their emissions history. They've done good record keeping for this because they're part of the Heidelberg Group that are part of the Cement Sustainability Initiative, so it's part of their routine already. And we look at their project history, what they've already built and have in progress that have some sort of carbon impact that may not have been so relevant at the time. So this is what a roadmap looks like. This is our timeline picture. So you see a lot of colors here. And the most important part to look at is that the time frame is a 15-year time frame. And you see all these various projects starting at different points along the way, because we look at some of the project technologies that aren't really ready today for prime time. So we put them back and have them starting some years away when we expect the financial situation to make them more feasible. There are groups of, according to colors, about the different types of emission reductions that are involved. The first group in blue are about the emissions from the combustion of the fossil fuels. So those type of projects involve fuel switch. And you see that first one right up there close to the present time is the current project they're doing, replacing some of their coal with some sort of wood products. And others come along in the future. The middle big purple band is to do with the process emissions that come from the calcination. And this is where all the CO2 capture and distribution of that CO2 into all sorts of different directions, not only EOR and sequestration, but many possibilities are there for disposing of that captured CO2. That little pale blue line is for their quarry vehicles, because they emit emissions directly through their tailpipes, and we have projects in mind for replacing that. Then we come to the red group. Now, purchased electricity does not create direct emissions, and most cap and trade programs don't include purchased electricity as part of the measurement. So only those first three groups will have direct compliance benefits. When they physically reduce, they'll get some compliance benefits. So there's other regulatory incentives that we have to look at for incentivizing things they do in reducing their purchased electricity. The little green group at the bottom is the purchased offsets, okay? You see, it's only a little bit. And most of what we look at in our roadmap are ways to physically reduce emissions rather than to buy the offsets. And the little group at the bottom, the orange, we are predicting some market changes that are going to follow on as effects of cap and trade, things like introducing a premium price for a low carbon cement product. All right, so then how does the client use a roadmap once we deliver it to them? Well, one of the most important things is to inform the board. This is a high-stakes situation, and any responsible board will understand that it is worthwhile to be prudent and to carefully manage the risks involved with a big upheaval like this. It helps to identify time-critical aspects of the strategy, so it helps guide the management on the part they have to look at right now. Other things, they can wait and see how things develop. We filter out and highlight the time-critical parts. It helps them open up dialogue with some of the project producers and get those conversations going. And, of course, the bottom line is it helps with competitive advantage. Those other businesses that are waiting to see are going to have to come in behind a plant like Texas Lehigh that's moving ahead and getting ahead of the game. So I don't know if we have any time for questions, Melinda?
My wife says. The question is, if in a life cycle analysis, if a supplier reduces their carbon footprint by reducing or becoming more efficient in their production process, in a life cycle analysis, it seems like the person that buys from that supplier could claim that, or the supplier could claim that. How do you make sure that it's only claimed once in the process? Right.
Well, cap and trade regulation is the big elephant in the room with all of this, all right? That's the major thing that's going to happen and impact emitters like Texas Lehigh. And that is already set up to have one point of regulation, okay? So, for example, fossil fuels are going to be regulated at the producer, the point where the company that imports or produces the oil, they get regulated. Electricity is regulated at the generator. So it's the power plant burning the coal that gets regulated, not the people that purchase that power. And then cement plants that burn coal get directly regulated. So they avoid double counting. That's the way the schemes already work. So if Texas Lehigh begins producing low carbon cement and they can sell it to a construction project who wants to be LEED certified, and maybe the LEED standards get to where they can claim points for having used low carbon cement, they get that benefit, but it's not really a monetized thing in that example for LEED certification. But maybe oil wells, who are going to be regulated, will find a way to buy low-carbon cement and then engineer some sort of policy where they can get some benefit, some monetary benefit from having purchased that low-carbon cement. So it just helps raise the price of the product.